We're going to get started here. All right. Another night in paradise. How you guys doing tonight? Welcome. You're at Macchiarini Creative Design Metalworks SF. And you're actually in front of the oldest ongoing metal arts production studio combined with a gallery in the United States. And we are one of the founders, original founders of First Friday. Welcome to First Friday. Back all the way in 2007, before Oakland, before Reno, before Las Vegas. First Fridays was started, of course, in North Beach. Of course. So I want to introduce Jessica Voss, who puts together an amazing group of poets every month to come down here and actually read their work. This is in the true history of North Beach and the true culture of North Beach. Right there where Pink Blossom is now was the first place where original poetry, beat poetry was read in San Francisco. That was called The Place. And Ginsberg read Howl for the first time right there 75 years ago. We're back in the day for this, almost 70 years ago. But anyway, all of the major beat poets read in that there. And instead of being able to clap like you did tonight, right, in order to recognize each other, they had to snap their fingers. Because if they didn't, the cops would come and bust them, literally bust in and bust them for disturbing the peace. So we're going to disturb the peace in that spirit tonight. And we're going to have a little poetry here. Welcome, Jessica.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Thank you Dan Macchiarini and Macchiarini Creative Design. And thank you David Zise for doing such a great job with the sound here every month for First Friday. The first piece I'm going to do is something that I found in a pile of papers today. I wrote it a long time ago. I'm not quite sure exactly when it was. And it's untitled, but it's written in the form of a spiral, so I will spiral. And I think that's because I wrote it when I was reading Paul Blackburn. Sex surrounds all sides, squashing, squeezing, thumbs me long. Alone in the middle, I sing a sad song. In sorrow I hide his stains inside. Lost in the sea, wondering about me. This is called the album cover, and it is written about a painting by my friend George Long. The album cover. Tripping skinny girls with spindly legs dance on the red rocks, make the amphitheater breathe. As the sun sets, the lip in the middle says bing bong, bongo, bongo. Tambourines echo, bongo, bongo, rock and roll, red rocks, stones, whirling dervish, gyrate the hula hoop, shake the hips, guitars twang, tambourines echo, skinny girls dance. And I was going to read something else, but I think maybe I'll do it in a little while. Right now I'd like to introduce Jennifer Barone, who is one of the co-founders, is a co-founder of Word Party. Please welcome Jennifer Barone.
I'll read you a poem about a Venus clam. vongole, devouring mouth, nape of the little neck. Some see the vulva on the half shell where Venus was born. Innocuous eye, fornicata that quietly yawns in quivering extra virgin steam, ready for wine to further loosen veritas from a sighing mouth. Cool bath of cocktail and lemon calms the fever, but I prefer the heated sigh, the pull of flesh that pauses and suddenly decides to release itself on the prong of your fingers, rare and curious shell, where love enters but may not return. Voracious spawn of life emerges from internal licking tongues. This is my husband, Daniel Hefez. Beautiful man, incredible musician. Had to give him some instructs. I'll read this poem since we had this conversation about my father. I wasn't sure if I should read it, but we had a conversation. So we're in this realm of the ancestors this week. So this poem about my father when he passed away. I could not mend your broken heart. They took me into a room to show me your broken heart on the monitor, pointing out the arteries frayed with sorrow. Depression that came in waves up and down like a ship in a storm. They fluttered up and down in hope and despair, interchanging their cries. My eyes followed rivers of veins that stood waving like broken flags, disappointed in their meaning, worn by the winds of your life as your heart struggled to beat erratic as your laughter. I couldn't hear the words that the surgeon spoke. As walls blurred around me, I entered your heart chambers looking for answers. I disappeared down white hallways, calling my ancestors for instructions, looking for the ghost of you, escaping from your body. Your body that would appear past midnight in faint puffs of cigarette smoke, that in the afterlife signaled you, smoke that I warned you of, white rolls that would crumble to keep you from, that angered you, shreds of tobacco that flushed down drains, puffs in the shape of ghostly O's came from your mouth. I entered the fuzzy screen of your heart, near its last beating, to hear the weariness of war. Night terrors that had not been released. I could see the frayed edges of love that had gone astray. A family unable to carry the weight of the war. Childhood abuses, wild ways that would acquire the tiresome effects of poverty, food without nutrients that clog the arteries, grief that clogged the veins, a heart that grew weary too often. I traveled deeper into those few streams, trying so hard to cling to life that held the chambers beating, this heart full of love, this heart full of fear, this heart full of laughter, this heart full of wonder, this heart full of creative fire, this heart that came thumping and thumping through the firmament in ecstatic bolts of laughter. I entered your broken heart, and you reached for me, but I was unable to mend it. I tried, still I tried, to remember how my grandmothers could take a spool of thread and weave spiral patterns of lace into flowers, the way you would move paints on canvas, and shreds of discarded paper that you turned into pictures. I warmed my hands and I placed them over your brow. I warmed my hands and I placed them over your broken heart. I warmed my hands and I stroked your white hair upwards and long flowing waves. I warmed my hands and I smoothed the frayed edges with my love for you, until they became a flowing river that exited the crown of your head and flew into the distance, past the silent walls of the room, on the waves of I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. This was inspired by a friend of ours, Dan Brady. He had a poem with a line that said, "Women have always been on the battlefield. Endless heroes' tales. They never speak of women as casualties. They're the unspoken, the unaccounted for. They're the ones who wear no medals. They're the ones who have no names. They're the ones who are always left behind. It's the women who come on waves, the women riding dragon swells, the women cradling children on a raft. It's the women who come alone, like apparitions on the foam on ships over the stormy sea. It's the women leaving a wake of loved ones behind them, their buildings left burning to the ground in a wake of fire. We are never told about the women. We're never told about the children. We're never told that the women are the sea itself, that the ocean is also a mother, that she's carrying us all in her womb, that her waters birth us and nurture us, that the waters create and destroy. We are never told that we ourselves are made of water. We are never told that water holds all the memories, that it holds all the stories and emotional waves, that the water itself was created by sound, created by music, created by our conversations, and therefore we are made of stories. And although the warriors say, leave no man behind, the women are left behind often with their children. And their stories are rarely told. But the water holds them, the ocean holds them, and the rivers hold them in their movement, and the tears that rise from the sea and fall upon the mountains run through the rivers, never stopping, and we swim in these waters and we hear their stories. And the water that was once pure can be purified again if we listen. Thank you, Daniel.
Once again, Jennifer Barone and Daniel Hernandez on saxophone. Next, please welcome Let's Fly Away with Scott Bird.
Thank you. All right. Happy North Beach First Friday, everybody. Thank you.
You didn't do that for me.
This is a poem that I wrote for Fleet Week a few weeks back. America! It sends the spots of the snow-blind eye leaning mesmerically on the sand dune page. There is your newborn abstraction in the glyph of eyelids. When the sleep cloud sated comatose, the understated sedated overdose of bad Chinese food, and the turquoise earring and the veggie lo mein crunch you teeth. Crunch you from that white envelope of a snowy gummy mouth. And again I say I hate war, but I do love the rumble of jets. They remind me of the thunder. that used to sweep those old lost souls out of the sea and gather them at the breast of the mountain. Existing the belly downstream, the desert rain, shadow, snow, there's only past, post-traumatic serenity, doors of hermetic rabbis, the eyes, there is only wailing children, and the cry of all of us who have been refugeed by the suffering rumble of $1 billion smoke and mirror show. There is only the double vexed cat. There is only the dog-pissed carpet. I saw the raven rast about and spill its spell in the matchstick of a ponderosa tree, that the fate will have its way, that blue angel way, your fat Albert detonates above the heart. There is only the quaking air below the barrier of sound, a hair's breadth from the shattering of grass and glass alike. I tickle the fronds. I spittle out a little fingertip whisper on the ground, singing sea breeze. There's your raucous thunder. There's your kitten's missing claws. There's your rapture and inundated audience. There's your deafening, dormant applause. Cheers. That's right. Better not set it up. A little potato water never hurt anybody. I wrote this poem just a few days back ago. I was going to play it at the Leonard Cohen Festival, and it was not my day. And so here's a little bitchy poem about that. I got thrown out of Twin Peaks in the Castro. Il Gestapi didn't accept my vaccine ID. Vaccine ID. I know I look like a homeless man. I know, but I have an ID. Let me show you. I got a $110 ticket from the SFMTA for blocking a garage that was not really blocked. It was because I know I look homeless, lady, but this van, it's not mine. It's a bootleg, what do you call it? A disability placard in the window. I promise. It's just a friend's van. I'm not a homeless man. I got stopped at the gate of the show that I'm playing at. Vaccine ID! Vaccine ID! Got busted for public exposure outside of the North Beach Library the other night because they called it hang-wanging on the ticket. I had to piss on a tire, and there was a tire. That North Beach police, they cheated me. They shit upon that and served me that warm beer, chided with smoking near the tree and door, and then they walked out with another ticket and said, "Oh, by the way, here's a $5 fine for whining." Yeah, you don't want to bitch to MTA ladies. Those guys will cut your throat. Oh. I just couldn't believe it. I walked in. Vaccine ID! Damn almighty. All right, this is a short excerpt from a long poem that I've been working on. It's a collection of poems called The Sun Breathed Last. It was the Feast of All Souls Day, and a long chain of tables stretched Last Supper-like from the ferry building to the pride flag in the Castro, and we did finally eat the rich, rich tenderloin of Jeff Bezos. No need for salt, little piggy, hardtack and grit, but oh, what a garden of plenty when they finally shipped off to colonize Mars. And the Mission Blue Butterfly came back to Twin Peaks that night. And waves of studded sapphire, we sat there drinking in the cold dark of it all. And light grew out of the cosmos and time out of the stars. And plants wilted into butterflies and moths. Our skin, porous and saggy little mushrooms, reclaimed the bruise and freckled. Coming up through the sores, eyes first, then nose, each one a mushroom budding. The tongue a mushroom, tip of finger and toes all mushrooms, little red and white speckled ones in the ears. That sagittal crust open wide to a beautiful blue gorb orb mushroom. And like a beacon at the top of a familiar pyramid or a lighthouse, from within, without, heaven surrounded it. No more black hole in the sky where our mother planet used to be. Instead, filled with billions and billions of these tiny little glowing mushrooms in our repurposed flower pot heads. Yeah! One more? Okay. Some of you have heard this poem. I set it to music, but I broke a guitar string earlier today, so I'm just going to recite it for you. It's called I Watched. I watched the lead belly of the mountain grow bare of ice caps and snow, and I watched the river flow down to a trickle. I watched the lumber poor carpenter in the street falter and then barter his last dime for a nickel. I watched a young girl learn to paint before she learned how to write, and she taught me how to see fish in the trees. I watched a Danae grandmother dig a finger's well in the earth to quench the thirst of her dying flock of sheep. And then I watched her ladle one cup of mineral to the mouth to slake her own red dirt throat. I watched the mother redwood tree tell her children to sweat in their red coats. I watched the spider-woven nape of fire sweep over the forest floor. And I watched a baby take its first steps and dance in the threshold of an open door. I watched the cold leaves of autumn give way to a dry, dry cold. I watched the old man roll his last cigarette and dump the last of his tobacco fold. I saw this branch divide, and I saw people hide. I watched as the halls of justice filled to the pillars with an unjust tide. And I watched the rich and powerful take a ride for a colony on Mars. And I watched them stream across the sky, and I heard the screaming of the stars. I watched this wicked, wicked thing, and I stood and watched it in its throes. Though my brain was trembling, all you broken-hearted know that I stood and watched as a child watches the first of the falling snow and watches, waiting. I think I will no longer watch and wait. I think I'll no longer think. From now on, I think I'll just sing. Thank you very much.
Next, please welcome the other founder of Word Party, Ingrid Kerr, who I haven't heard read in a very long time, so I'm excited.
Hi guys, how you doing? It's cold out here. Hi Charlie. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Jessica, and thank you so much for the work you've done in the community for so long.
Thank you for coming.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm reading yet. This is what happens with Ingrid. I pick out like maybe right before. Sunday. If my body is yours, what would I become in your hands? Would you flatten and roll me between palms, sculpted into the soft arc of a sourdough loaf? If my blood was the ink of your pen, what would I become spread out onto paper? Would you write about curvature, a longing for roundness in a world full of angles? Would you dream of a summer peach, tender, fuzzy skin, the sweet drizzle in your mouth during long nights while Santa Anas blow? Could I see the wonder of your world in the small continent of your bed? Would I be haunted by prisms, followed by the body's memory on a foggy night, high above the skyline, under the purr of a sleeping city? If I was stitched into a quilt, what colors would rise? Would I be sewn by hand and left alone on the foot of a bed, awaiting a warm body to lie oneself underneath? The bathtub listens to the rain of water and calls out for my touch under the spray. All is ripe with possibility. I don't know what this one's titled. We're going to call it the prompt name, which was Shapes Like Stars. She is a solve. She knows of sorrow and forgiveness. She knows of loss and worry. She claims it all and gives out passes for creation. I angle to be more linear. I think in circles, though, the way the light bends to the eye, the way my hips curve and curve. We are all stardust and planetary DNA. Where are you really from? No, I don't mean Earth. Your starseed wonder. A windowsill, a patio to a vast great grove. The dark matter magnetizes our energy to be closer. I feel myself pouring into a hole at times, one of lemon balm, and sometimes cayenne. I want to create new spheres with my heart, places of refuge from reptilians. I gather the water, I lay out the roses, I say the prayers, I candle, I watch the energy compost. I infuse hope and love into medicinals, lemon verbena, holy basil, heather. We are of spirit. They speak to us of the sharpened blades, of cycles, of the yuga that is cycling through us now that is wide as the millennia. The Mayans knew. The yogis knew. We attempt to spackle the cracks of our fissures with chocolate almonds in Downton Abbey. Occasionally the fissures heal, but more than likely you need to get outside. The prescription is time and deep listening. What does your heart say? What brings you joy? I approach these questions from the side door. Poetry gives me joy. The heart asks for many things, but the simplest of all is clean air and water. I long to be held by the aspen. I long to remember what it was to be under blue skies. I think I wrote that during a fire. This is from a book of poems that I put out in 2016 called The Choreography of Nests. Dear love. No, not that one. Hold on. No, they're all named the same thing, so it's a little confusing. Dear summer. Love is diagonal, not unlike the whir of a machine, the buzz of an insect, the mad dash of Canadian geese in the running back. I step off the curb, and 15 seconds later, 2 cars crumple like used Kleenex. My legs free to continue walking down the street as the sirens flood the night's quiet. When 2 people travel on varied paths directly miss one another, is it an omen of good luck or bad? The soccer player kicks the ball to bend into the net, the way the light bends into a rainbow's curve. He gazes across a crowded bar as if only I exist. I recall my first softball glove, how unexpectedly delicious the leather hide smelled, of something nearly briny yet not of the sea. The giant ball lands directly in my palm, but love is not something to be caught. Minutes tick away. A letter arrives and proclaims to be love, or lost love, or who the hell knows. We write one another about mystery and longing and ghostly characters who survive sweaty summers on NYC asphalt. Condensed sweat drips from air conditioners, a rain of rapture down from concrete heavens. Machines purr in the bedrooms of lonely women and pull out orgasms like hot pasta, wet, steamy noodles. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid Kerr, once again. And I should mention, since we have the 2 founders here of Word Party, I didn't say what it was, and neither did either of them. So it is, you want to explain it?
It's a jazz and poetry night that has been going on for multiple decades, but we're currently on hiatus.
And where is it?
We're on hiatus.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, you're on hiatus. That's where it is. Okay.
We're in poetry limbo.
It's a street over New Stanton, right? Hiatus.
So anyhow, our next poet is the wonder of the Beat Museum, as well as a number of other things. Please welcome Brandon Loberg.
You'll hear me all right? What? Hey? It's called Some Assembly Required. 1. My father once kept a collection of spare parts in a coffee can atop his workbench. Nuts and bolts, nails and misfit screws, bits of orphaned hardware left over from Christmas toys, or the kind of furniture that comes in a box, some assembly required. But when sifting for a moment produced a vital component, one less job was left undone. We used to build things. In the backyard, in the greenbelt, we erected tree forts and eyesores from scavenged wood and lofty imagination held together with nails pilfered from Dad's collection. Once, in a moment of carelessness, I left the can outside. Maybe it was dinner time or it got cold. Sometimes it just gets dark. And sometimes it rains. Sometimes you return in the morning to find it brimming with filthy black water, knowing you'll never scrape the rust from what you left out in the weather. 2. Provision is predicate to living. Brass tacks in this dirty business, the measure of balance between burden and purpose, storing solutions with the prescience of what's coming. From squirrels to guerrilla fighters, all whose lives so fraught with hazard know where their cachets lie. The contract, inelegant yet simple, hide your nuts and keep your powder dry. Thank you for laughing at that. You did. But the ones who spent their time for its best, bear what it wrought bound in leathery flesh, where the scars earned their stripes, journeyed years before the mast, could tell 1,000 stories in 12 tongues, but the lines in their faces read densely as a corpus, their eyes focused taut, clear and deep with the wisdom of memory. Of this, as with all things, some assembly required, the milk in the fridge before it expires, the way broken things wait for spare parts to complete them, and it all comes to rust with the rain anyway. 3. Every kid once caught caterpillars, but no one ever witnessed metamorphosis through the walls of a mason jar. And now when the night lingers late enough that it's early, he puts on his favorite fuzzy green sweater and moves in the dark through the tiny apartment, past the precarious stacks of a house disordered, and standing in the window, waits for the sunrise to erase his reflection. Gone with the morning were it only so easy. And the world through the glass seems to grow distant, stranger and meaner, and the years defeat the bodies of the people passing by. Nimble men pick up canes, their steps slow and heavy, and before long they walk past the window no more. And night after night, as he waits for sleep to take him, breathing shallow and labored, he whispers to no one, "What a waste." Then it came at last that they carried him shrouded, feet first down the narrow stairs to the ambulance waiting, sirens silent, bound for morgue. His only footprints belong to the furniture. So years ago, lone in the quiet of the coming night and gazing across the bay, placid, dark, demure, and sequined with the silent lights, cross-traffic, and brightening Berkeley skies, I took this picture. A sliver vestige of the gone world's starlight against the dark tide and days bereft of butterflies. Now they've gone without leaving a note or an inkling of where they went missing. No maps traced in dusty wings say they'll return to me. And I've got this notion that my smile's been lying, but I've been biding my time because you know what they say about dead men and the tales that they tell. Now the rain drowns the gutters, pooling heavy as the sky in my hat, the ursine embrace of the sidewalk's cement shoes. It's cold. Don't ask me to feel better. The rain hasn't painted this desert face since I remember. And I told you when you said I seem so far away sometimes, I'm sailing with the world at a distance in this mosaic of broken time. Every shard clinking to glint again upon the sidewalk has a story. And the long nights always find me there on the quay, fingering an old photograph, the past recaptured, staring holes in the sky for a glimpse of the stars. Because all we ever see of stars are their old photographs. The pictures you found in the attic, your parents smiling together, dressed in decades out of fashion, but mostly wearing new love from ear to ear in every grain of those old Polaroids, or the friend who checked out long before anyone thought he had a right to. And you can't go back. Everything electric, kindled in the brilliant butterfly dust of nebulae, is slowly rending itself apart. And in this flicker, as our twilight beckons, we might never see the pictures to prove that it happened. All we have in this slow collapse are a few slurred sincerities between friends, between lovers, and when cause me a flutter in the ink blots of last night's wine stains, I hope I never get sober. But if we can lie in the grass, linger in the cracks where the asphalt flowers grow, we might hold more than just one another's farewell gazes, forget to remember that every connection is just the portent of a long goodbye, and I might spend my days accepting love instead of making rain. Keep me awake till the stars burn out. One more, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one more.
All right. This is a fairly new one. Did you know You can use a tampon to plug a bullet wound. No, you can't, and you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. No matter what conventional wisdom it might seem, it's something designed to stanch your heavy flow. Might also prevent you from bleeding out. You'd nonetheless be wrong. Are we just too familiar with reaching for the simplest things, anything that might fill the holes that open in all the wrong places, the voids whose edges defy similes of round pegs and square? Nothing real adheres to such symmetry. Smoke and liquor, for instance, seem to fill the interstices with a burn that makes believe it might cauterize your raw and ragged edges. Where the bullet entered, or your heart seemed to exit, again, you'd be just as wrong as I am. And I often ponder the inanity in writing these ridiculous poems, shoveling blood and bones and mostly time into this sinkhole I know I'll never fill. Maybe, should you show up with a wound roughly the shape of these pages, one of them someday might fit. Thank you.
Once again, Brandon Lober. And we're going to rock out the evening here with Jerry Ferez and Jose Simeone playing Samson and Delilah.
Strongest man on earth. Killed 10,000 Philistines with a jawbone of an ass. He had religion. He had religion. He had religion. Way down in that soul. Please. Samson said to take a knife in your hand, cut off my hair. I'm just an ordinary man. day, day and night under the lash. Till his hair grew back and his strength returned. 'Cause he had religion. He had religion. He had religion. Way down in that song. See, if I had my way, I would tear this building down. And he had religion. He had religion. He had religion. So it all came tumbling down. And me and him had it. Me and him had it. Me and him had it. Way down in this song.
Oh, yeah.
Jose Simeone. On the guitar. All right. Okay, thank you, Jim.
You guys want to hear one more? Yeah. All right. Do you want to play?
Oh yeah, hold on. I'm gonna do the same thing, man.
Same song.
Well, mother let children have a hard time when mother is gone. Mother let children have a hard time when mother is gone. The children got no place to go, running around door to door. Mother lets children have a hard time when mother is gone. Well, father will do the best he can when mother is gone. Father will do the best he can when mother is gone. Father will do the best he can. So many things the man just don't understand no more. Mother lets children have a hard time when mother is gone. Some people say big sister will do when mother is gone. Some people say sister will do when mother is gone. Some people say sister will do. First a man come along, he will be untrue. Nobody treats you like mama do when mother is gone. Some people say little brother must do when mother is gone. Some people say little brother must do when mother is gone. Some people say little brother must do. Poor brother don't know what to do. Mother, nobody treats you like mama do when mother is gone.
Once again, Jerry Ferez and Jose Simeone. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. You've been a great audience. And hope to see you next month.